Hello everyone. Today on From Scratch to Finish, I'm going to show you how to make a delicious tomato pie. Alright, so what we are going to need are 5 Roma tomatoes. It says peeled and sliced. However, I've never peeled a tomato, so I just sliced them. And they are right here in my strainer or colander. We need 10 fresh basil leaves, which I do not have because my basil hasn't grown yet. So 10 fresh basil leaves is going to equal about 1.5 teaspoons of dried basil. We'll need a 1/2 cup of green or red onion chopped. I like red onion, so I have a 1/2 cup of red onion. 1 9-inch pre-baked pie crust, which we have here. A cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and I have my mozzarella. We also need a cup of freshly shredded cheddar cheese. I don't have freshly shredded, but I do have cheddar cheese. And then 3/4 cup of mayonnaise, or half mayo, half Greek yogurt. So to make it a little healthier, instead of just using all mayonnaise, I like to add the Greek yogurt in there as well. And guess what? You cannot tell a difference at all because I've had it both ways and it tastes the exact same to me. We'll also need 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, and then salt and freshly ground pepper for taste. So we are going to preheat our oven to 350 and get started. All right, I have set my oven to 350. Now what the recipe says to do is to place the tomatoes in a colander in the sink. I just have it on some paper towel. And you're supposed to spread them in a single layer around the colander and then sprinkle with salt, which I had done. I just put salt in my hand and I kind of flung it on the tomatoes, and they're supposed to rest for 10 minutes. So they have been resting for 10 minutes. Now what we need to do is to use a paper towel to pat dry the tomatoes and make sure that most of that excess juice is out of the tomato, because we don't want a soggy tomato pie. So let's get some paper towel. And we're just going to pat the tomatoes to make sure all that excess juice is out of there. Alright, then we're going to layer the tomato slices in the pie crust, then the basil and the onion. Okay, so first step is to layer the tomatoes. And it says 5 Roma tomatoes, but I almost feel like that's way too much. I'll just put how many will fit in here. When I made this last year, I never used 5. I have 5 cut up here, so I'll just use what I have. Hopefully it's not too much. Some of the ones at the bottom are a little liquidy still, because it's hard to fit 5 Roma tomatoes sliced in a single layer in a colander this size. Alright, so we have our tomatoes layered, and now we need about 1.5 teaspoons of basil if you're using the dried basil. If you're using fresh, it's 10 basil leaves chopped. Right. After the basil, we add in our 1/2 cup of chopped onion, green or red. We just really like red tomatoes. Red onions. They have such good flavor. After the onion, we are going to season with salt and pepper. So I just kind of sprinkle some salt, and that was a lot of salt, in my hands, and put how much I want on top instead of doing like I just did in my hand. And pepper. Then we're going to combine the grated cheeses and the mayo or Greek yogurt together. So since I want more Greek yogurt than mayo, I'm going to put 2/4 of the Greek yogurt and 1/4 mayo. I'm at the end of this mayo, so hopefully it's not making noises on me. It will. Let me just get another mayo. Because if I sit here and try to squeeze the mayonnaise out of that container, Charlie will want to laugh the entire time. So we're gonna then do, believe it's a cup of mozzarella and a cup of cheddar. I've never had this Tillamook mozzarella. Any of y'all ever had that? And a cup of cheddar. Alright, we are going to mix this all together. And then this mixture will be spread on top of the tomatoes. And it likes to try to move everything else around with it. So I just spread it the best I can. And then you sprinkle the Parmesan cheese on top. Now I'll tell you a little secret. It was supposed to be grated Parmesan cheese. I did not get grated Parmesan cheese. I got shredded Parmesan cheese because I thought it looked fancier. I didn't read my instructions again. But I'm sure it will do the same as grated. All right, so it says to sprinkle 2 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I'm just going to take a little bit and sprinkle it on top. And it is to go into the oven at 350 for 30 minutes or until lightly browned. And before you cut it, it needs to rest at least 15 minutes because it will not cut very well if you try to cut it when it comes right out of the oven. But I'll remind you of that when I show you what this looks like at the end. So I'm going to put this into the oven for 30 minutes and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. And here is the finished product of the tomato pie. Now remember, like I said, you need to wait about 15 minutes before you cut it. That way it has time to set and it'll just make things a whole lot easier to cut if you have let it cool. I've noticed that after having it in the refrigerator and taking it out the next day for leftovers, it was much easier to get out of the pie plate. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of From Scratch to Finish, making the tomato pie. See you next time.